So today's thoughts on self-sufficiency, day 5 in this little quest that I hope you're joining me on, is really simple, yet I think profound. And it's all about doing hard things. And what I mean by that is your ability to endure a little bit of hardship. Okay, and how do you do that? By doing hard things. It's training. It's a little bit of inoculation into enduring hard times. And so I want to talk about that in a couple different ways that you can do that. I want to use an analogy. And the analogy is that of fasting. So, throughout history, fasting has been parts of all major religions. It happens to be very popular right now as far as, for your physical health. But fasting, where you abstain from food for a time, can be very beneficial for you in a health-wise manner, but also for your mental and emotional state. Okay, so not only is it healthy for you, and there's no question about that, albeit for certain people, for some people, a small percentage of the population, it's probably not a good idea. So you need to check with if you have a health provider that you trust, you should talk to them about that if you're going to engage in that specifically. But fasting is tough a little bit, okay, at first. Right? At first. So if you start out with intermittent fasting, and I've been doing that personally for a couple of years, on and off, not every single day, but in many cases for months at a time, like literally months at a time, with doing, say, 16, 18 hours of fasting per day with a 6 or 8 hour eating window. Okay? But that gets you used to a little bit of discomfort. It gets you used to enduring a little bit of hardship. It's not that hard once you do it a bit. Okay, so once you inoculate yourself to something like that, over time it gets easier and easier. And before you know it, 16, 18 hours is easy. Doing some 24-hour fasts become easy over time. Doing 48-hour fasts become not super easy, but they become doable, and they become something that you can handle and you can just do. And I don't mean like, I'm going to go on a 48 or 72-hour fast and I'm just going to lay around the whole time. I'm doing normal, regular work. Okay, and as far as like intermittent fasting, 16, 18 hours a day, no issue there. All normal work, working out, whatever. That's a way of inoculation. But to me, that's like an analogy to doing hard things. Right? So, and I pick that as an analogy because not everyone can physically do hard feats, right? So you might say like, well, do hard things. I'm gonna, put in 50 miles a week in hiking or running or whatever the case may be, or I'm gonna do some ultra endurance events, or I'm gonna join a CrossFit gym and do CrossFit workouts 5 times a week. That's all great, but not everybody can do that physically, although you should try and improve your physical condition, obviously. But everyone can do hard things. Everyone can abstain from food for a time, for example, as a method of training and inoculating against hard times. I mean, I'm going to ask you a theoretical question. If you were in a survival situation, would you rather be with somebody who is going to die if they don't go 12 hours without food? Not as in actually dying, but you know what I'm saying. That's the saying, right? Oh, I'm dying of starvation. And I've gone without food for 12 hours. Or the person who regularly fasts, who's done some 24-hour fasts, 48-hour fasts, 72-hour fasts, maybe even some more longer extended fasts. Obviously, all things being equal, you're going to go with that person over there that's endured hardship, that can handle it, and is not going to be literally worthless in the first day because they haven't eaten, they missed one meal. Okay? So again, that analogy of doing hard things. And there's other aspects of this as well. So it's not just abstaining from food, for example, right? But I think that's a good one. The next thing is like abstaining from other things, right? So it's changing what you quote unquote need, right? So what are some things that we need? Well, we think we need, right? We need coffee in the morning. And don't get me wrong, I like coffee, okay? Coffee in the morning. Or whatever it is that you need. Can you abstain from that? Can you, for a time, I'm not saying go without it, forever. I'm saying for a time, abstain from it. Because that's a hard thing to do. It really is. In Thoreau's book, Walden, A Life in the Woods, which, by the way, that book is not just about a life in the woods. In fact, it's, in my opinion, it's tougher than that. It's more about philosophy and this guy's quest for independence and the spiritual journey, etc., etc. Okay, so it's quite a deep book, but he brings up a really good point in there where he talks about the man who doesn't need or desire beef and butter and coffee and tea has it easier, is more independent. And that is not to say that you shouldn't enjoy those things. I love all those things. But there's some truth in that. When we, at least for a time, are able to back off of those things that we need, we have the ability to be more self-sufficient and then independent. And so that's the other thing here, is that can you withdraw from some of those things for a time? And do you pick periods of time and say, like, you know what, no alcohol for me for this month or this week or whatever the case may be, or I'm gonna wean myself off coffee for the morning for a month, something like that. Okay. The other thing is do you expose yourself to other things that are difficult, right? So an example would be cold exposure, right? Taking cold showers, for example, or going outside in the cold with minimal gear on. Okay, might be an example. Okay, I'm just throwing things out there that do hard things increases your level of self-sufficiency. It really does, because you can do without. And then the final thing that I want to talk about is this idea of kind of being a minimalist. Okay, not in the sense where it's kind of faddish nowadays, where people, they only have 5 outfits or something like that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But what I'm saying is, essentially, can you go from having these, it's not that you're just owning less per se, but it's wanting less or needing less. Okay, so it's one thing. It's like, okay, I'm gonna bear down and I'm gonna get down to these 30 items of clothing, and that's all I'm gonna have. Although I think that's good, and I've actually personally done that. Not 30, but a lot less. I literally got rid of 80% of all my clothes because guess what? I wasn't wearing 80% of all my clothes, and I think most people, if you really looked at it, you would probably utilize 20% of all your clothes. So anyway, it was actually very freeing to do that, because it's less to worry about and all that. Anyway, my point is that wanting less is kind of key in self-sufficiency. So again, right, if you're a person that doesn't need the beef, the butter, the coffee, the tea, as Thoreau said in Walden, then you are necessarily going to have an easier time with your independence. Okay, and that goes with our modern day life as well. Can you need less? Can you put down your phone and put away social media for 24 hours? Okay, I'd say most people can't. Literally can't. Or I shouldn't say can't. Of course they can. They won't. They don't want to. Okay, so these are things that we can do as in hard things that don't just require like some physical feat, although physical movement and physical shape is very important for self-sufficiency. Your health is very important for self-sufficiency. I'm trying to focus on things that almost anyone can do. Okay, can anyone fast as a not only a method of benefiting health-wise, which you will, but you're going to benefit in a manner that you're doing hard things and you're becoming a little bit more of a hardy person. Someone who that when faced with tough times can endure a little bit more because you have done that type of inoculation and training. Okay? So that's the lesson for today. That's the thought of today. And that is that we do hard things, that we train in whatever manner that is important to you. And again, not everyone can do all the things that might be beneficial in training and doing hard things. Yes, obviously, physical tasks, tough tasks are great for doing hard things, but there's other things that you can do as well, like fasting. And I use that as a great example because almost anyone can do that. There are some minor exceptions with people with underlying medical conditions that should get some guidance and counseling before they would undergo something like that. But I do believe even those people could benefit from it under the right medical supervision. Okay, and it's doing hard things. Minimalism, as far as needing less, and being that independent person that requires less, is going to be somebody who is more self-sufficient.